man.
Mm, right.
There we go. And the Heat might mess around and go to the finals.
Oh, we up.
Which, well, right now they winning 16-13.
Wow.
Jimmy's out though with the ankle, but they already got the split, so the Heat might win. This is crazy. I still think the roster is not that good, but you know,
That's what I'm saying. Who we gonna
we
start
we've
get?
been
When we
able
gonna
to.
start giving credit to this stuff? But I mean, yeah, I don't. They fooled me.
Yeah,
They fooled me.
they're fooling me so far. But what's going on, everybody? What's welcome. Excuse that Miami Heat pre-video talk. My name is JV Wins. That's Dogon SF as usual. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Appreciate you for watching. Appreciate you for joining the tribe. Before we get into this week's topics, as always, I want to say, man, hit that subscribe button. Follow us. Follow along as we continue to grow this community, man. We certainly appreciate everybody supporting that logical content. Go ahead and make sure you hit that like button whenever you're watching any of the videos on this channel. But most important, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can help us as we continue to, evolve what we do here. A lot of interesting, fun things coming down the way. So we appreciate everybody who's joined us along for the ride. We certainly appreciate the support. We enjoy doing this each and every week, and so we are very thankful for everybody who is a part of what we do here. Whether you're just hitting a like button or leaving an actual comment, or even if you're just viewing the video, whatever you like to do, thank you. We certainly appreciate it. Um, so, with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get started with this week's videos here on May the 2nd. First thing that we're going to talk about is an interesting tidbit from Iyanla Vanzant and Eboni K Williams. So, Iyanla Vanzant, I know Iyanla Vanzant from Fix My Life. That's what I know her from. So she's for anyone who doesn't know who Iyanla Vanzant is, she's a prominent fixture on anything Oprah related. So she's often featured on programs on Oprah Winfrey's own network, which includes her own show, Fix My Life, where she helps to coach people on various things like personal growth, relationships, so on and so forth. Very much centered around the Black community. She deals primarily in the Black community. And the woman that you're looking there on the right side of your screen is Eboni K Williams. She's a lawyer, but she's also the host of a show on Revolt called State of the Culture. So Eboni K Williams hosts a show on Revolt TV called State of the Culture. She had a guest on her show. That guest was Iyanla Vanzant. They got onto the subject of relationships and how women are outpacing men and how there just aren't enough women anymore who can measure up to what women's needs and expectations are for being a partner. And it was an interesting exchange. So I figured we'd talk about it for a segment on the channel. We thought that Iyanla had some pretty interesting retorts to what Eboni K Williams had to say. Eboni K Williams is the one who believes that there just aren't enough men out there who can measure up. And Iyanla is basically saying, hold on, let's pump the brakes on that. So we'll go ahead and, first of all, for context purposes, of course, we're going to share a little bit of this here so that everybody can get the gist of what was said. This clip is 6 minutes long. We will not play the whole thing. We'll probably just stick to about 2 minutes or so because that'll provide all the context that anyone needs. And then we will talk about what each of them had to say afterwards.
We're getting those terminal degrees, those JDs, MD, PhDs. We also are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, along with Latina women in America. Pew Research said that women are now out earning men yes. in 22 of the largest cities in America, including where I live, New York, DC, LA, you name it. When we talk, and I know that you've said that you cannot teach a man or tell a man how to be a man. So I will not ask you to indict men in this question. But I do want you to speak, Iyanla, to how women need to I don't know, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources. And some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if he owns the bus? If he owns it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Okay. Because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we are as women and who they are in this society. I would date a bus driver if he loved driving the bus, if he was a man of integrity, if he was good to his mama, if he treated me well, I would date a bus driver. But we think that it's another human being's responsibility to give us what we need instead of us building together. I can build with a bus driver. I'd have my little stash over on the side in my prenup, but I can build with a bus driver. So I think some of the criteria that we look for in the reality of today keeps us unhappy, keeps us angry, keeps us imbalance. And then when the men show up, we want to beat them up because they're not living up to our standards and criteria. And it's not working, beloved. It's just not working. So it's not that it's bad or wrong. It's obsolete. It's obsolete. We have to come up with a new way of being. I don't believe in carrying a man. A man has to do for himself. My son got his first job.
Okay. Wow. So obviously we can continue to play more, but I think that pretty much summed up what the general premise of their conversation was. So I've heard this often, and there's of course plenty of podcasts, YouTube shows, streaming shows, TV shows where they talk about these different types of subjects, and you'll hear this is not the first time I've heard this. I'm pretty sure it's not the first time that you've heard this as well. This notion of men not measuring up, not earning the incomes, not doing this, not doing that. So this mentality is more widespread than you would think if you think that this is more of an isolated type of thinking. But, there you have it. That was what Eboni K Williams had to say, and then that was Iyanla's response. So what did you think about that exchange?
It was priceless, honestly, because this Ebony young lady here wasn't expecting to get hit with a truth bomb so early. I guess she figured she would just talk about the topic and not make it a little personal for her. And then, of course, she was shocked and she gave a thought answer. After she gave her thought response, we could play the clip again, but with it muted. And you can see the bot in her trying to recalculate everything that she was like, damn, just so much truth. And it goes against her bot code. And so she was having cognitive dissonance the entire time because in a subtle way, she was advised that you're part of the problem. And the reason why you can't find a good man is you don't know what a good man is. And so I love the response. And what was even more entertaining was her facial expressions as she kept getting slapped over the head with some truth. So how about you, bro? How do you feel about this?
So this exchange reminded me of the conversation that we had. I think it was when we talked about Aisha Diaz, the Instagram model, and how she, looks forward to holding down the fort when her man goes to prison. And you were saying that that spoke to her responding to her primal energy. So for her, it isn't necessarily about a man going to prison, but rather that same guy who went to prison, there are certain characteristics about him that her primal's nature responds to. And therefore, she is, attracted to men like that. But we basically got into a debate between the two of us about primal energy. And I, for the most part, agree that a lot of the things that we respond to do have a lot to do with what we gravitate towards instinctually as human beings. And since men and women are fundamentally different, men and women fundamentally respond to different things from a primal sense. So the thing that makes men want to date OnlyFans chicks and porn stars and Instagram models and influencers, that's the same that's the same that's the same machination that makes women want to gravitate towards guys who do certain lines of work or make certain amounts of money, so on and so forth. I will agree with you that that is a primal response. I think at the end of the day, women who harp on things like income on the surface, but beneath the surface, that's a response to their primal need for a man who is able to provide for them.
Right.
However, you and I diverged when it came to the conversation around primal responses, because I believe that primal energy has become warped by socialization. And the reason why, and you can, and this is an example of why I think primal energy has been warped by modern socialization. So in this exchange, Iyanla asked Eboni if she would date a bus driver. And Ebony responded by saying, I would date, if he owned the bus, I would date him. Right. So now again, I'm gonna continue with the example of a bus driver, because that was the analogy that was presented in the interview. I don't know the ceiling on what a bus driver can do. I don't have that knowledge right in front of me, but let's just continue with the example. If it was all about what Eboni K Williams and others who think like her respond to in terms of a man who's earning the income, and Ebony even mentioned they're not earning the income when she was setting up Iyanla for her response. If it was all about the income, then whether he owned the bus would be irrelevant. How much money is he making? You know, it's the same thing as the example of my sister's friend and the Walmart example I brought up. You brought up wanting a guy who's ambitious. Okay, is it about money or ambition? Is it about income or ambition? If he runs 3 Walmart stores, he's probably making great money, and he's ambitious enough to climb the Walmart ladder. But you've already admitted you wouldn't date him because it's Walmart. That to me isn't primal. That to me is socialization. Because if it was primal, it would be, how much is he earning? What can we build with that? What can we do? Okay, I don't care if he works at Walmart. I got him. She said, no, I wouldn't. No, she basically admitted she would only date a bus driver if he owned the bus. Or maybe if it was a guy who owned a bus company, a busing service. But what if it's a dude who is driving buses, but equates to what you earn or is out earning you? I think women like her, and this is where I think that this whole thing has gotten twisted, they would not date those men because their primal senses have become warped by modern socialization.
Absolutely.
And they believe it has nothing to do with it. But see, they make themselves seem redeemable by bringing up income often. And it has nothing to do with how much money any particular man is making. It's all about what he does and how that makes you feel. So, you know, the manosphere, when the manosphere opines on what a lot of women think these days, you know, guys who are Kevin Samuels fans, guys who watch the Fresh and Fit podcast, those types of guys, guys who are kind of trying to understand how they can be successful in this situation. and they follow content like that, because people like Kevin Samuels, God rest his soul, used to put women like Ebony on blast for their warped sense of reality. The reason why, guys who ascribe to the manosphere lament on these types of things is because we consume enough content on a daily basis to see that this kind of thought process is more widespread and rampant than you might think. And it's easy to talk about things like income when the truth is it has nothing to do with about income. It's about the intrinsic value that we've attached to certain things that guys do. It just so happens that a lot of the things that women say they look for go hand in hand with a guy who makes a lot of money. So like they'll bring these chicks on Fresh and Fit and ask them, what kind of guy do you look for? Or rather, Eboni K Williams will say, does he own the bus?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's easy for you to say, does he own the bus? Because in all likelihood, if the guy owns the bus, then he's going to make the requisite income to cancel out any criticism that you have on his income. But if you flip it and you say, what if he makes this much money and drives a bus? Is he good enough for you? That would really expose her for what she really thinks. Because in her heart of hearts, the truth is she wouldn't like that guy. He has to be the guy who's the owner. And my whole thing with this type of conversation is that's fine. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not about income. It's not about income. It's about specifically what he does and the value that you attach to that. Is there a correlation between that and the income? Yeah, but the initial driving factor is the other thing, not the income. You're just conveniently using the income to make yourself seem redeemable, because who's going to say that a woman saying a guy needs to make more money is crazy? Of course, no one's going to say that. Everyone would agree with that. That's a sensible enough take, but it has nothing to do with income, in my opinion. It's about all of these other things, and it's about programming and conditioning. And the reason why I thought about primal energy and the conversation that you and I had about primal energy is because this to me exemplifies how primal energy has become warped by socialization. But on a surface level, I agree with you 100%. Women do respond to their primal senses. I just think that for a lot of people today in general, men and women, because guys do the same thing. Like, why isn't a woman who keeps her body up and is pretty enough for a lot of these guys? They have to go to the Instagram models and the chicks who do OnlyFans who've had surgeries, right? Why do you have to take it that far? It's because as men, a lot of us, we've had our primal senses warped by socialization. Absolutely. just in the manner that we respond to it. So right. It goes both ways, right? The door swings both ways. But I kind of look at her and I say that she's capping, of course. She's full of shit, as a lot of women who echo this type of rhetoric are. You bring up income. It has nothing to do with income. If you met a man making $95,000 a year, but he worked in sanitation, you would not date that guy. You wouldn't. Because for you, sanitation it's not sexy enough. It's got to be somebody who in your mind is an owner or a boss. And again, I don't mind that as long as we're honest about it, but don't place the emphasis on income as if the end all to be all for where you stand on this is about income. It's not. It's about everything else. And I think that this exemplified that. I think she's full of crap. And I think Iyanla's retort to her was reasonable. And, it was fair. So I didn't have an issue with it. I just think that, Ebony is just full of boo-boo.
Well, to mention the, what you call it, the primal stuff. So, yeah, I don't remember exactly what I said then, but yeah, I agree 100%. I think everybody's just operating off their primal energy, but that's where the manipulation takes place, where it gets warped. And so where are they picking up these new forms of habit? This new twitchy behavior that everybody think is cool, but I would holler that's from watching all these apps and these little videos that's only X amount of seconds long, so your attention span is short. So you watch human behavior in a jiggy jaggy way, and then you start to mimic that behavior, and you think that speaking witty and all this other stuff that these new people are doing is cool, and it's not. It's weird. And so, but their primal behaviors are being manipulated, and they come out with these behaviors of just commercialization, and they don't even see how commercial they really are, and it's weird to hear new people speak, because it's like, where's the authenticity? You sound like a commercial. Where's your personality at? And people have been bred into being and seeing the world in one particular way through having their primal energy manipulated. So in these situations, yeah, I agree with that. And so, and in this situation here, when she's the primal sense here is that she just wants to be dominated, period. So if she has a degree, she wants a man with a better degree. If she has if she's on TV and she's got this kind of status, and he needs to make X amount of dollars for me to be parading around with a man, because I can't walk around with no bus driver. I am who I am. So in her world, she wants to be dominated. So she wants somebody that's better than her, and that's what she wants. And so you're not going to get it, and she's not going to get it, and especially with that attitude and those drawn on eyebrows. So I don't have time for women like this, who she will run away from accountability. If this conversation got any more personal, she would have self-destructed. Steam would have been coming out of her ears.
Yeah, I think she just would have started lying.
Of course, yeah, it would have went down a rabbit hole of lies.
Yeah.
But I told you this before in previous conversations, man, that the current state where men are at, this is not what men do. We're supposed to be working for real, and not sitting behind desk or doing whatever. And even if you do hand-to-hand work in the field, like drive a bus or do construction, it's still not respected if you're the employee. And subconsciously, in a primal sense, they don't respect the man that has to follow another man. Coming home from work, talking about how another man controls you. Subconsciously, it turns women off that aren't thinking. So, how you say this lady name over here? I don't even know.
Which one? Iyanla?
Yeah, Iyanla. So excuse the pronunciation. I'll just call her Own for now, because that's the only thing I've seen her on. But as Own was speaking, and she was speaking that truth of the actual truth, that there's good men in every tax bracket. That, of course, this Ebony woman, she's not gonna want to hear that, because she's so, like you said, man, she's so conditioned. And no, he has to dominate me. And honestly, even if she were to deal with some guy and he was real cool that didn't make as much, eventually over time, she's just going to find him gross. And so I think that's natural. So I think that's natural. And that's how the hypergamy thing comes in, because you're not a prize to them. And you gotta be you gotta be like, oh man, I won with this one.
That's I agree with you. I just don't think being a prize to them has much. I think. See, the primary problem that I have with people like this, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm coming at women. The primary problem that I have with people like this is they use income as a crutch. They use income as a way to make themselves seem reasonable, even though they are actually being unreasonable. Because I don't think it has anything to do with income. Like I said, I think if a guy worked in sanitation who made more money than her, I don't know how much money she makes, but just kind of using this as an example, if a guy worked in sanitation and he made more than her, let's say he runs a sanitation plant in New York City or somewhere like this, and so he's running the whole thing. He's the boss and he runs the whole thing, and he's making more than her, but he works in sanitation. I think she would find that guy inadequate, not because of income, but because he works in sanitation. So when I bring up the point about socialization, I'm talking specifically about a valuation that we as human beings today, in the modern day sense, place on certain aspects of earning a living.
Mhm.
So if you work sanitation, if you're a bricklayer, if you work a crane, you know what I'm saying? If you're a foreman on a construction site, you probably out earn 70% of the population. If you want to break it down on dollar figures, the average median salary in America, I believe currently is like 44,000 a year, I think. Based on the last research that I did, it's 40 something. It ain't as high as 45. The highest American salary right now is like 42 to 44 or something. So that's the mean, which means below that, you got people, and then you got people above that. But the mean is like 40 something. So if you're doing these things, there's a decent chance you're out earning a pretty sizable percentage of the population. And most of that population is going to be women. Now, granted, she is an exception because she's probably, and I'm assuming that just based off the way she talks, I'm assuming she's in a higher tax bracket than most. I'm assuming she's probably a 20 percenter. So she's already operating from the standpoint where, yeah, you do have slim pickings from that standpoint because you're dealing with a smaller percentage of the population. But even within that 20 percentile, you got men who probably do all of the stuff that I done brought up: construction, architecture, sanitation, maybe they're in IT, engineering, so on and so forth. In my opinion, I don't want to put words in her mouth. In my opinion, I feel as though the way that her mind is set up and the way women like her think and the way their minds are set up, men who are in IT, sanitation, landscape architecture, whatever, electrical engineering, whatever, who are in the same bracket as her, so they might be making a little less than her, or they might be making a little more than her, or they might be making maybe 10, 15K more than her, but you're still in the same bracket. She's going to look at that as inadequate. And it has nothing to do with income, from what I can tell. And it has everything to do about specifically what they do and the social cachet that we as people in the West have attached to certain forms of work. And so that's why I kind of look at it and I say it's warped primal energy. But that's my opinion. That's just kind of how I see it.
No,
I don't really see it these days having much to do with money. I don't, at least I just don't, I don't think that.
I do.
Because if you ask these chicks, what do you want your guy to be doing? Like, you can ask them, poll them. What would your ideal man? What does he do for a living? They're going to mention certain things like maybe he's a doctor, maybe he is a practitioner of some sort, a lawyer, or maybe he runs his own real estate company or does this or that. Now, it just so happens that in all likelihood, men in those spaces are going to out earn you because doing those things come with a certain requisite level of income. But that's a convenient way to correlate those things. Really, it's about the other factors that come into play when you're talking about what a guy does for a living, but you can conveniently use income as a way to make yourself seem more reasonable. That's kind of where I feel like chicks like this Ebony woman are coming from, or at least that's their mind state.
I would say, because the reason why I brought up, well, let me stick with this. So I think in these situations, you said a lot there. I want to respond to two different things. So, all right. So in a nutshell, I still think that yes, this is still in a primal sense. They just want to be dominated, and so money is a factor. It always is. It's never not. Hey man, I wish we lived in a world where money is not a factor, and I wish we lived in a world where women would devalue it, but they don't. And women wish there was a world where men just devalued vagina so much so they wouldn't ask for it all the time if they were married. Just all right, bro. It's just, just sex. It's gonna get to that point. And then you gotta be okay with that as a man. So the whole thing is that, yeah, in her mind, why can't he just get over sex as a man? You already know what you mean. How can I not get over? In her world, how can I not be over money? That's security, duh. That's your job. And
Can I
so,
throw one? I'm gonna let you finish, but I just want to throw one little thing in there
okay.
because I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
But what I see this, and this is, I think it's interesting. This is an interesting conversation. So I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily saying you're wrong. I
Right,
just
right, yeah.
think we're looking. I think we're looking at it slightly different.
Of course.
When women say, like you said, why can't the woman say, "Hey, man, stop," you know, valuing vagina so much?
Mhm.
That's not how I see it. The way
Okay.
I see it is women are saying that would be like a woman's like a guy saying, why do you have to value how I make my money so much? Would be the same thing as a woman saying, why do you have to value ass so much? Because it ain't necessarily about vagina. It's about a woman having a fat ass, because not every woman has a fat ass. Not every woman has a fat ass.
Oh, I
But,
wish
uh,
though.
but I know, right? But like us as men, it's not necessarily about the vagina, but some women might be like, why does it have to be about that kind of body type? She need to have the kind of ass to hip ratio and all of that kind of stuff. Like I got body, I just don't have a body like that. I think that's kind of how I see it. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, yeah, because but I don't think money's a preference. Body types and stuff is a preference. And I was just saying that in the sense that, vagina is no preference, that you just want it or not. Do you want sex? Because, and what kind of woman you want sex with? But I get what you're saying, man. I think still overall the that they just want to be. We're not women. But
Yeah, yeah.
I can only the only thing that I can tell you, that the best way I can explain it of how I look at it is that, how you feel when it's like around Christmas and it's a little chilly outside and you just turn the heat on, so it's about to get real fancy in there, but you want that blanket on you, so then you grab the blanket so you can get extra toasty. Men's job for women is to be the blanket and make sure that they're extra toasty. And they want to always feel like that, period. They want that feeling every day. And the only way that that can happen is if some guy out there is always making sure that the heater's going to come on, that they're going to be covered and protected in all facets, and that they're going to be feeling good. And each woman got their own definition of feeling good. But at the end of the day, money is at the crux for the women that aren't thinking all the way, that are just acting out of whatever. Now, part of their manipulation becomes their preference down the line of, hey, you can't be a bus driver, but you can be an entertainer.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
When they bring what I'm saying is when they bring up money, they're not actually talking about money. They're talking about preference.
Right. So yeah, right.
That's my
I got
suspicion.
you. And
Yeah.
so when they go, hey, I want to be taken care of, that's what they mean. And so if you're a man that makes around the same amount as them or less than them, you're not the warm blanket. You're not the warm and fuzzy one. And then, damn, if the heater came on and it's making noise and this ain't secure enough, I want that feeling. And he can't provide it. So as much as y'all love each other, she knows there's warmer nights. And she's gonna hold out for that and give you shit until you get it. And then she'll start acting right. But if you never get it, she's gone. And then the sad part about this is that if they just did this to just get married, I wouldn't have issues. But then there's the other population that look at it as, okay, that was come up phase one. Now I'm gonna take the kid. Now I'm gonna take this house, and I'm gonna get pension. And then they go, yep, cash out again. Taxes season come around, they claiming the kids. and just living, doing nothing. That's the population that I have an issue with. Yeah, you, baby. Not all of you. But so this woman here, she looks like the Ebony young lady. I don't know her from a can of paint. But one thing I can tell by those painted on eyebrows, and every time she rolled her eyes when the truth came around, that she's the type of scoundrel woman that high value men, because that's what she wants, stay away from. They're wearing condoms with that, hopefully, fellas, and just leaving her where she on the outskirts. But the reason why I had brought up and I'll leave it the last reason, and the reason why I had brought up the earlier conversation that I had made about us not doing it, and it's more of a status thing, because in her mind it's like status, and when it comes to her preference, and even if if you're gonna give me a bus driver, at least have him own it. And in that mindset is, I don't want a man who's an employee. And so that's why I was in those conversations, I was always emphasizing that, hey man, make your money now. I get it. But just look at your job as the cotton gin from here on out. Mm-hmm. You're just in the fancier one. And you just you're doing it now, just in AC. And the women subconsciously can see that. And subconsciously they're turned off for the ones that aren't thinking. Right. And that's a lot of people that don't think right now. And then there's women who can compartmentalize this and see that, but then look past that because, they actually are in thought. So the own lady over there actually is using her brain. And autopilot Ebony over here, all right, was just baffled that, damn, I sounded like a thought on air. And then, of course, then she was, like you said, she was going to start cleaning stuff up later just to make herself look like, oh, I ain't just judging a man off his status or his income. I'm 50-50.
Boo, 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 as I say. That is boo, boo. Boo, boo.
That was a good one, though.
It was. Well, and I don't even believe in 50. I'm not saying that 50-50s are like, if a woman is not okay with 50-50, cool. My whole thing is just stop bullshitting me. You care about status. Income is secondary to status. That's my opinion. If anyone disagrees, go ahead, let us know in the comments. But in this day and age, now again, you put the disclaimer out there. I'm going to reiterate. This is, I know this sounds like a generalization. Yes, this does not apply to all women. It doesn't apply to all people.
That's right.
So let me make that clear. A lot of women out there are reasonable and they do understand these various nuances and concepts, but there's a lot of them that don't, and they place a valuation on status. But they will try to make themselves seem like a reasonable person by talking about income. It ain't about income. It's about the status of what they do. And that, I think, is a warped form of conditioning. And so I think that she's in that. Eboni Williams, I think she's in that. I think Iyanla, who, not coincidentally, comes from an older generation. So she's less corrupted than younger women probably. And she understands the value of steering the conversation in the right direction. Iyanla's talking about income. Eboni K Williams, is talking about status. And status and income are two different things. Now, you can say that, it's like not all racists are ignorant. It's like, what is it? Not all ignorant people are racist, but all racist people are ignorant. So not all men who earn a lot of money have the status to go with it, but all the guys who have status, in all likelihood, earn the money. And she's trying to conflate those two things. And a lot of women like her conflate the two, and they're not the same. She wouldn't piss on fire to put out a guy who works in sanitation. She wouldn't. Even if that guy worked in sanitation and made $150K a year, she wouldn't piss on fire to put that guy out. She wouldn't. Maybe if he owned the sanitation company. But maybe. Yeah, I just call BS whenever I hear that kind of stuff. So
man,
another example of consequence. Yeah.
We need the lights.
Another example of pointing out hypocrisies on the Content Coach channel, or at least I see that as a hypocrisy. You might disagree, and that's perfectly fine. It's a free country. I feel as though that's a hypocrisy.
Ladies, let us know in the comment section. All right. I know not all of you ladies are just mindless bots out here, but you actually have a mind of your own. So let us know in the comment section. All right. What you think about this?
Yeah, facts. Appreciate the content though. Thanks to Eboni K Williams for the content, as well as Iyanla Vanzant. Appreciate that. Iyanla Vanzant she's been around for a while.
Yeah,
I've watched a few episodes of that Fix My Life show, and shit gets real from time to time. I don't think a lot of those women end up changing, but at least it's entertaining to watch. So
very good. All right. Yeah, every time I seen her, man, she be dropping truth.
Yeah.